Hello, this is Miss Thomas, and in today's lesson, 12.6, we're going to be looking at quadrilaterals and drawing quadrilaterals based off of their attributes. We learned about quadrilaterals in lesson 12.5, and we learned that quadrilaterals are shapes that have, you got it, four sides and four angles. So let's look at an example. Here they have three examples of a quadrilateral. Draw an example of a polygon that is not a quadrilateral. Well, I know what a polygon is. Do you remember what a polygon is? A polygon is a shape that has closed sides. They have to be closed, can have an opening, and straight lines. So all of these shapes that we see are polygons because it fits those classifications. But they want us to draw a polygon that is not a quadrilateral. Well, what is a quadrilateral? We said it. A quadrilateral is a shape that has four sides and four angles. So when I think of a shape that is not a quadrilateral, I think of maybe a triangle. A triangle is not a quadrilateral because a triangle has one, two, three. Three sides and three angles, while a quadrilateral has four. So that is why my triangle is a polygon, but it is not a quadrilateral. Let's see what's next. Here it says we have three examples of a square. Draw a quadrilateral that is not a square. So the shape that we draw has to be a quadrilateral, but it cannot be a square. Now, before I begin, I must think of what attributes makes a square a square. Why is a square considered a square? In order for a shape to be classified as a square, I know that it must have four sides of equal length. I also know that it has to have opposite sides that are parallel, which means that they will never touch. A square must also have four right angles. So what shape, and there are a few, is a quadrilateral but not a square? Well, I think of a rectangle. A rectangle is a quadrilateral because it does have four sides. It has four angles too, but it cannot be classified as a square because a square has to have, what did we say in the beginning? All sides equal. And a rectangle has two sides that are longer and two sides that are shorter. So a rectangle cannot be classified as a square. And those lines that I made, you might see them in your lesson. Because this has two lines and this has two lines, it means that those are the same. And I drew this with one line and this with one line because it means that those are the same. So yeah, a rectangle is not a square because it has sides that are different lengths, unlike a square. Let's see what's next. Next we have rectangles. They want us to draw a quadrilateral that is not a rectangle. Before I draw, I need to think. What classifies a rectangle as a rectangle? What are the attributes of a rectangle? Well, let's see. A rectangle has opposite sides that are parallel. That side is parallel to that. It will never touch, it will never meet. And that side is parallel to that. A rectangle must have opposite sides that are parallel. A rectangle must also have, do you remember? Four right angles. So in order for a rectangle to be classified as a rectangle, it must have opposite sides that are parallel and four right angles. So guess what? Do you remember the square? The square that we talked about in 12.5 is also classified as a rectangle. I know. Why? Because it meets those two classifications. It has those two attributes. It does have opposite sides that are parallel, and it has four right angles. So a square is a rectangle. But you know what's not a rectangle? This trapezoid. This trapezoid is not a rectangle. Well, why isn't it a rectangle? It does have four sides, And it does have opposite sides that are equal. These sides are the same size and these sides are the same size. But guess what? It doesn't have four right angles. Nor does it have opposite sides that are parallel, because a rectangle has to have two opposite sides that are parallel. If I look at this trapezoid and I make this side up and I make this side up, those sides intersect. They will cross. A rectangle does not have sides that cross. So a trapezoid only has one pair of parallel sides. So a trapezoid cannot be classified as a rectangle. And last, we have a rhombus. It says, draw a quadrilateral that is not a rhombus. What do we know about rhombuses? You just have to remember, a rhombus, as we look at these rhombus examples of rhombuses, they have opposite sides that are parallel. Those two sides will never meet. They can go on if you continue making those lines out. You see, they'll never touch. So it has parallel sides, opposite sides that are parallel. A rhombus sometimes has four right angles, but it doesn't need to have four right angles. But it does have to have opposite sides that are parallel. And there's one more thing that classifies a rhombus as a rhombus. A rhombus has to have all sides equal. So that's why a square is a rhombus. But what shape can I draw is a quadrilateral, but it's not a rhombus? Because this shape that I'm going to draw, it cannot have both of these attributes. And I think of a rectangle. I'll draw a rectangle. And there's other shapes that's not a rectangle. That was a parallelogram. And we'll learn about parallelograms later. Let's get it right. Okay. Still no. All right, there it is. A rectangle is not a rhombus. The reason why a rectangle cannot be classified as a rhombus, but Miss Thomas, it has opposite sides that are parallel. Oh, yeah, it does. This side is parallel to that, and this side is parallel to that. Why isn't it a rhombus? Why isn't it a rhombus? Because a rhombus has to have all sides equal. So all rhombuses have all sides that are equal, but a rectangle doesn't. So this would be my quadrilateral that is not a rhombus. So in lesson 12.6, you will be looking at different classifications and different attributes of quadrilaterals. Now keep in mind, before you select a quadrilateral, think of the attributes of that quadrilateral. Enjoy your lesson 12.6 and email me if you have any questions.